And we're live.
Welcome to it. It is the Sunday Live Average Joe Sports Show. That's Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Like and subscribe. Tell a buddy. We're here for you 7 days a week with the Average Joe Sports Show. And can search on YouTube, the Average Joe Sports Show, AJ Sports Radio on Twitter, and Spotify and iTunes for the podcast. So on demand on your time. Gentlemen, we are under 1 hour with the mother of all mulligans. Things did not go well for Nebraska this week in that marathon overtime affair against Ohio State. While that would have put you on the right side of the bubble, many experts believe you're on the wrong side of the bubble, Nebraska basketball right now. But how about doing something about it? Get to Indy, play your way in. To do so, you got to win here in about an hour against Iowa. How are we feeling? How's the old time change? Shocking / messing with everybody.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I thought they were going to do something about this, like do away with forward and back or whatever. And yeah, I'm not a big fan. I tried to back time it and go to bed earlier last night, but we're here. Ish.
Yeah. And Schmidt would be the guy. I think it's going through state legislator now to get rid of the time change. Love the coffee mug bill. Yes. But it would require federal approval plus approval from like neighboring states and all this stuff.
Right. You need your neighbors who
we're relying on Iowa.
You're talking Iowa, you're talking Colorado, Kansas, Dakota. So yeah, it's
I'm not counting on it, essentially, is what we're saying here. But give it a couple days and I'll be all right. It's just the sleep schedule will be screwed up for a couple days.
Well, I was going to crash in Omaha, stay with my buddy Nate. Ended up getting home late last night. We had the wonderful memorial service for Randy Freilich, Norm, or Louie, depending on the era. And that was wonderful to see some of Dad's buddies and hit a few spots I hadn't hit in a while in Omaha. So that was an adventure, and oil's changed, feeling money. So we're good to go.
Look, with all respect to your dad's friend and Schmidt's dad was the ultimate man's man kind of guy. Great friends. But what was the deal about having a little bit too much CC in his system?
Oh, well, apparently the Norfolk boys, my dad and Randy, and this is all 17th hand, but they somehow during their teen years became allergic to cherry vodka. So
your dad discovered Jack Daniels.
Jack discovered Dad, and Norm liked Canadian Club, and the joke was the CC Olympics, and he was a gold medalist in the CC Olympics. But we found that out on really kind of our first football road trip. This was out in '97. My buddy Nate I was with last night, my college roommate Matt. And Dad had a knack for figuring out a way to get out of McCook during Thanksgiving. If it was Grandma and Grandpa Hunt's turn to host Thanksgiving, my mom's family, Dad's like, want to go to Boulder? So we'd end up going to Boulder. But one year when we were in college, the championship here in '97, we all went out there, and Cousin Dino, who you've heard me talk about, he's passed on as well. And Norm and my dad were all there. So Nebraska hangs on that nail biter ball game. I think it was Javon Green who caught a pass as Colorado's threatening to take the lead. I think Nebraska won 27-21, something like that, but the Buffs were driving, and Dan Alexander went off in that first half. No, excuse me, it was Amon Green. Amon Green went for 200 yards that day, T.O.'s final title, and then you just kind of let your foot off the gas as you're up 24-7. And Colorado storms back as they would. And so we're leaving the stadium after a nail biter. And typical Buff fans in everyone's face just ticked off. They lost another close ball game. And, Dino's asking the guy politely to please stop. My dad's kind of eyeing the situation. And then there's Norm, just kind of also surveying the situation. And I'm like, why are you guys so confident? How do you stay so calm? We're college kids. And Dad's like, we're the ultimate tag team. Dino pushes him. I hit him below the belt, and Norm falls on him. So it's not their first rodeo. But those men's men knew how to tailgate, and it was a 10:30 local kickoff. So they had us up out of bed at 7 to start tailgating and priming at the old Harvester Hotel. And Norm would bring old big glasses of screwdrivers, but they were all triples. So he would sip it and go, oh, that one's nice. This one's yours. I mean, so just a lot of fun family memories.
And Schmidt, your memory of that game is incredible. 27-24 final score. Nebraska wins it. Colorado with 2 late touchdowns, but Amon Green, 202 yards rushing. Nebraska 58 attempts for 350 yards on the ground that day in Boulder.
Well, and they ran the counter, and Amon would kind of be in the wash and then just shoot out for long touchdown runs or long gainers. And Nebraska was killing them, and then Colorado got a 5th wind in the fourth quarter, and Erwin Sweeney kind of made the game-saving play to stop the 4th and 8. So, and that was against Skippy Neuheisel, I think. So
this is our way of not talking about Nebraska basketball.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
I promise. Also avoiding talking about Nebraska baseball and what went down yesterday, and and our emotional senior send off today on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Well, saw Robin Washut tweet out that Braxton Mia is questionable. I know Kent and Jake are ready to rock and roll. Fellas, it's weird. And Fred's presser yesterday, as we get to Nebraska basketball here, he talked about Bryce and he talked about Jawan stepping up and kind of taking control of the heartache after Ohio State, getting the team ready. They've had a little time to rest between Tuesday night and today's tip-off. And, I know Nebraska fans right now, they themselves are priming in the rail yard and going to make their way across Canopy to get to PBA. But it's I feel, I'm jinxing this, I feel fine today for Nebraska basketball. I think there's clearly the revenge factor. I know Iowa's probably playing to get in, obviously, and keep their season going. But I just think you're going to have a mood and an edge at PBA today. I think there's a lot of thankfulness, specifically for Bryce and Jawan with the fan base. And I think it's going to be kind of a cranked up, not sleepy, but more of a cranked up, despite the time change, despite the early tip on Fox. I think Nebraska's fan base will help get this team once again across the finish line. And who knows? I mean, can Iowa replicate what they did in the second half? Dear Lord, they hit 17 threes. They had a guy go for 30 points, and Nebraska had a 15-point lead. I mean, it's all there for Nebraska on top of the obvious, and that is wanting to keep their season going. We do got to shout out our brother on the Average Joe Sports Show, Gary Sharp. Sharpie is right now, Sharpie is on assignment, as you know, as UNO is going to be dancing. That is awesome. I hope Sharpie picks out some incredible dancing shoes, as they are going to be a part of March Madness. We're super happy for him and, of course, the UNO program and what they're about, what they've been able to do on the national scene with the old trash can beatdown. Maybe Nebraska can find their own garbage can today and stuff Iowa in it.
They found a bunch of them over the last month and a half. Yeah, they just haven't kicked them. They've crawled in them at times, but yeah.
And I'm sure Junior has already commandeered the big TV downstairs so he can watch his beloved Michigan State Spartans put a fork in Michigan. But let's kind of round the hornet here. DEFCON level is what right now for Nebraska not getting this done today? I think they handle it. I got to look the lineup here, but I think Nebraska will come out ready to go. I think this might be a game where they take out some frustrations, maybe a season long's worth of frustrations on somebody. In Iowa, their defense is optional. Maybe Nebraska gets hot.
I think that I think this is a good game for Nebraska to wrap up the regular season. I think all season long we've kind of looked at this as certainly a winnable game, finishing up at home with Iowa. If they win this game today, you're going to the Big Ten tournament, and you're not going to be facing one of the top 4 seeds, right? I mean, you have the potential to win maybe 2 games in Indy against comparable opposition, right? I think we can all say Michigan State's in a class by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan, Nebraska should have beaten in Lincoln. Now, I'm not sure they can have the same kind of result if they were to play in Ann Arbor or in Indianapolis, but if Nebraska gets to Indy and they're playing any team, 6 or lower in the first couple of rounds with a scorer like Bryce Williams, a defensive player like Jawan Gary, maybe Nebraska gets 2 wins and gets to 20, and all of a sudden they're back in the conversation again. I was out last night and watching the Duke North Carolina game, and I see the crawl at the bottom of the screen, and it says first 4 in, first 4 out. And Nebraska was still in the first 4 out conversation. Now, that's not being in, but the fact that Nebraska is still on the mind of anybody putting together a bracket going into next week's Selection Sunday, to me is still mystifying. And it all began, this Nebraska slide began with that second half against Iowa back on January 7th. Nebraska just beaten UCLA, flying pretty high. You're talking about Nebraska being anywhere from at that point like a 6 to a 10, somewhere in there. Mick Cronin is, apoplectic about his team.
Threatening his team's life. Yeah,
exactly. But what happened in the second half with, what's his name? Dix going off for 30 points, or Sanford went off for 30 points in the second half. No, you never see that. That's not going to happen again. But it was
famous last words.
I know. Second half against Iowa is what has set us off on this journey of this basketball season that just has us all worn out. But the possibility is there, because people are still looking at Nebraska with its quad 1 wins, its record against quad 1 and 2, and this is a 2 game today, that if they win 3 more games, oh my God, Nebraska is back in the conversation for being in the NCAA tournament after eking into the Big Ten tournament. I'm exhausted.
You've seen teams, Elijah, put crazy runs together. NC State going Goodfellas on their head coach today, but that team is an 11 seed. I know made your bracket last year with a magical Jimmy V tribute. I think Nebraska wins today. Doesn't it set up? I mean, and there's still some things in play, but Northwestern seems like the opponent, right? Likely in Indy. And then do you get a Maryland? Do you who do you get? You get somebody that they are an eyelash from at worst splitting with Maryland, let alone being 2-0 versus 0-2. You've beat Oregon. You've beat Illinois. You have beat UCLA. I mean, the teams in front of you, well, about everybody's in front of them, but at one point in time when you were a game or 2 below 500, you had beaten the teams in front of you. You've dropped to the teams right with you or below you. You split with Ohio State. You've already tagged Indiana. Indiana's a flavor right now. They survived yesterday at Assembly Hall. And Ohio State's now flipped on the right side. Got some data and some latest projections with ESPN. There's 29 bubble teams right now, and I'll get there in a moment.
Geez.
Oregon is feeling good, and we'll see what happens with Minnesota. They've been good on the road. They tip off at noon. So it's totally doable for Nebraska to get hot again. And that would be apropos for this team with this wild roller coaster of a basketball season.
You feel very optimistic on a Sunday morning. I am not feeling the same way you are about this game, because it feels to me like one of those games where Iowa's a great 3-point shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
I know Iowa's
we know
Iowa's not a great team this year, but that feels to be like the one issue that Nebraska's had all year long is whenever a decent 3-point shooting team gets hot, they knock down a couple of threes. This Husker basketball team has a tendency to roll over. And that's my concern.
I don't think this crowd will let them roll over today. And you're like, yeah, shut up. But honestly, I mean, I think one last rodeo.
There's been games where the crowd's been behind this team and this team's rolled over nonetheless. Rutgers, Minnesota, USC. I mean, there's been games this season at home where you go, what the hell was that? And that's my concern today, is that Iowa knocks down a couple threes early. They are up 7-8 points in the first half, and this Husker basketball team on senior day can't handle the emotions. And I think a stinker of a performance. I'm not concerned about them like completely giving up. Mm-hmm. But I am concerned about them not handling the emotions and just not getting the best version of Nebraska today.
I think Nebraska, if they can jump out early, get a lead, I think they could pour it on.
When was the last time Nebraska jumped out and got a lead? It's been like almost a month.
No, you're absolutely right, which would be par for this season for them to actually come out ready to rock and roll with this moment, this stage, right? They know the opportunity. So we talk Selection Sunday is a week from today. You've got 32 teams right now per ESPN locked in. You've got 37 at-large spots, and you got a total of 29 bubble teams as I kind of fast forward right now. Percentages say this. You've got 78% chance of Georgia. They've had multiple 4-game losing streaks, but they're in the incredible SEC. Vanderbilt's cooled off a little bit. They're right at 74%. Oklahoma right now is a concern because they pretty much eliminated Texas in Austin last night. Arkansas had a big home win.
Duke may have eliminated North Carolina last night. That's what helps Oklahoma as well.
And what happens with where Ohio State's at, right? Because Ohio State, you had Indiana, you had Ohio State, then you're looking at Nebraska as the teams that have work to do. Teams that are in, you've got 9 bids expected for the Big Ten. Who's that 10th spot? Sparty and Michigan, and Wisconsin got slapped at home, which is crazy. Maryland and Oregon, Purdue. You have Illinois and UCLA. So if you win today and get by round 1, if it looks like to me you have a Maryland or Purdue opportunity. I don't want to jack with Purdue. Give me the team that's got to beat you a third time. But Indiana right now is at 53%. They have lost to Oregon. They won at home against Ohio State. Ohio State's loss yesterday dropped them to 45% chance to get in. And right now, hovering on life support is Nebraska at 23%. You had the Minnesota debacle. You had the marathon against Ohio State. Their metrics, mid-50s SOR and WAB, they have been slipping at the wrong time. Why not flip it? And I know that's what Fred and company have talked about in the locker room.
And it should be noted here, I don't think we've brought this up just yet. You do have to win today to make the Big Ten tournament. With UCLA's win over USC yesterday, it confirmed whoever loses this game out of the Big Ten tournament, whoever wins this game in the Big Ten tournament. And David brings up a good point here in the stream, asking the question. We've talked about the emotions of senior day for Nebraska. What are the emotions of Iowa like, considering he says this could be Fran's last game? I'm going to go as far as say it's likely Fran's last game at Iowa. Iowa fans are, I think, out on Fran totally. And once you lose the fan base, it's kind of curtains for you. And could Iowa turn it on emotionally, saying, "Hey, it's Fran's last game. We're gonna finish out strong here"?
I don't know what the relationship is with Fran McCaffrey and his players. I assume that it's good and it's but I can't imagine that they're going to be able to muster that kind of emotion on the road. You know, I that they've been talking about his job status for 2+ years now. You know, there was talk last year, there was talk the year before. Where'd they go? The NIT last year. They've gone to the postseason play the last like 4 years. I think Fran McCaffrey's job status has been a topic of conversation that they've lived with for a while. And it could be players are like, all right, we know, let's just go out and play. It's the same cloud over the head and has been. I don't get that. I don't think it's going to be that big a deal, especially when you're playing on the road. Now, Larry points out, and you can't underestimate the value of this. Larry's wife and daughter are going to be at the game, and Nebraska hasn't lost with them there. So
that's big, Uncle Larry.
Yeah. So when you've got that intangible from the average Joe section, but done deal. Like, get Tony George on the phone.
Well, let's cross the river, fellas. Let's go put the house. Uncle Larry, appreciate it, man.
And the line right now for Nebraska, Iowa, Nebraska is a 7.5 point favorite. This opened at 6.5, and it's moved towards Nebraska. So,
that's because Larry's wife and daughter are going to be there. The line just moved in the last 30 seconds.
Well, and you know, this is probably a little cruel on senior day, but if Braxton Mee is questionable, that'd make me jump the line a point. God love him, but let's get our starting five shot.
Hey, he's been questionable all year long.
Man, we're evil this morning. Arlo got rocking and rolling with us this morning. Justin is in. Good to have you, Justin. Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, says, I'm looking forward to Fran throwing a fit today. Absolutely. David is in. David, thank you for joining us. NASCAR Eric checking in. Andrew checks in, says, how about them Mavs? Absolutely. Andrew, how about them Mavs? That's pretty awesome. They are going to be very adoptable by many of us if things don't go the right way for Big Red Basketball. You have Brian Snitley checking in. Terrible day on the diamond yesterday. Need to salvage the series today. Bats need to wake the F up before it's too late. Maybe we need some of Jobu's rum and the hats for bats to keep bats warm. Just a suggestion there. Will Bolt was not happy, clearly. Totally understand that. Steven is in, asking if we were early or going to be early, on time, or late. I think we were 2 minutes late. Rocco, the other Rocco, is in. Good to have you, Rocco. And Coach Brandon says, hey, is this the Joe's Sunday tailgate? I think a red beer may be in order. Captain asked the question. The spring forward clock is killing them this morning. Gary and Bill are probably fine. They wake up early, but I don't know about Chris and Elijah. We were all here, huddled up, ready to go, Captain. Yeah. Chris is getting his face licked by his dogs right now to wake up. They have been out. They have been fed. Charles is here. Charles, good to have you. Game Dog, what's up, man? Working off the 134 proof of Jack Daniel's single barrel from last night, celebrating my Celtics slapping the Fakers, watching MMA. Love it.
Did you see that LeBron flop last night?
Oh, my Lord.
He's
a cartoon character.
I know. You know.
It sucks.
Yeah.
Hey, not everyone can be Jokic, not getting foul calls and still dropping 30, 20, and 20. There's my. I'm going to get up my soapbox.
I like it. The other Dave is here, and we have the other Elijah. First time I listened to the play-by-play UNO game last night, I was interested to hear Gary with his professional voice versus a talk show voice. Sharpie all the time. Terry.
And hey, how about those Mavs punching their ticket really fast?
I love it.
I asked Gary if he's got a 1 seed circle just yet, but he says, hey, maybe they'll get up to the 15. Maybe it's the 2 seed line.
I have seen some early matchups like many of us, and I have seen Houston v. UNO.
He wants Michigan State. Michigan State, the Frankie Fiddler story.
Oh, that'd be the Frankie Fiddler Bowl. That'd be great.
That'd be fun.
It'd be all right.
So Sharpie is basking in the joy of last night's semifinal win and getting ready for tonight's Summit League championship game against St. Thomas. The reason why, for those folks who don't know, the reason why Omaha is already in is because St. Thomas moved up from D3 to D1, and they are in a probationary period, which makes zero sense to me.
Well, yeah, why a team that's won 20-plus games and clearly has competed well in the Summit, why the hell are they having to sit in a timeout?
Well, I don't know. That's part of you make a move, you got to be on probation. I don't understand double secret probation, Dean Wormer.
Kids can be at 7 programs, for the love of God.
Right.
You make an entire school sit out.
Yeah. So St. Thomas could win tonight, and UNO is going to the dance, and that's awesome. I did go to the game last week when they played ORU, and the Fighting Connor Clark's our good friend, who's the voice of ORU, now searching for a basketball coach. And that UNO team plays with a chemistry that I think people around, if they haven't paid attention to them, they're fun to watch. It reminded me a little bit of the last couple of Nebraska basketball teams with Kisei and Griesel and Hoiberg and Mast and Jawan Gary and Bandamel. Those teams had good chemistry and were fun to watch. This team has been exasperating. But I think with UNO, with their trash can thing, that'll be a big deal during the, Selection Sunday. They'll probably show that a couple of times, and then when they play in the tournament. So Omaha is going to get a lot of run because of what they were able to do in getting attention during the regular season. And happy for Gary. He's been their voice for 12 years now.
Yeah.
And he posted something on Twitter this morning that Chris Crutchfield, their head coach, texted him last March saying, "We're going to the dance next year and appreciate you for all you do for Mav basketball." Yeah, that was great. And so, Gary's a total pro, but he's got a soft spot in his heart for his Mavs, and I'm happy for him that he's going to get to call some games in the big dance. With his team.
For sure. And super talented dude, obviously. And that is something. And you look at Gare getting a chance to put his dancing shoes on. There's so many Nebraska fans out there that are waiting to hear KP's winner for that first NCAA tournament game.
Yeah. He's earned it
completely. He's done his time, brother.
To get back to a conversation we had, I think a couple weeks ago on the weekday show, man, and it's an uphill climb at this point, but what would it mean if this is the team, the Nebraska basketball team, that gets the first tournament win? And at this point in time, I could see anything happening with Bryce Williams on the team. That's a guy that can will a team to victory by himself, damn near. I mean, you almost saw it against Ohio State. If the refs aren't going to,
let's go there for a second.
This is a team that with Bryce Williams could be the team, and of all the great Nebraska ball teams that you've seen, if this is the team, the most perplexing up and down Jekyll and Hyde basketball team I've seen in a long time, if they're the team that gets it done, man, that'd be something. But it's an uphill climb.
The Nebraska basketball team that always has a place in my heart, and many, is a lot of folks. We were all in grade school with the 90-91 team that was a 3 seed that had Rich King and Tony Farmer, Carl Purple Hayes. They'd always play Purple Hayes with Hayes on the floor as one of the starters. But I loved the 94 team because you had Pike and Chubbuck, the 2 seniors there. And I mean, I can spit out the lineup with Boone and Strick, Chubbuck. That was post Derek Chandler, I think. But the 94 team was my favorite. I loved how they were fun to watch. They scored a ton of points, but the fact that they put the run together down in Kemper after really a disappointing previous season, because Nebraska was always an 8 or a 9 seed, and they get shipped off to the pit or be an empty gym at a 9:45 Eastern tip off. They'd take on UConn, Calhoun and company. I mean, so Nebraska's draws were against a lot of squads that were underachieving 8 or 9 seeds that took it out on Nebraska. Nebraska, bless their heart, that 94 team against Penn and another Michael Jordan just didn't have enough giddy up. But that was magic. That was magic for Nee and company to win down in Kemper. I think they avenged Missouri. I think they got by Okie State in the championship game. And was it Oklahoma in the second round that Pike went for 41 on? Yes, Terry. Yes, Terry. The backup point guard, still a discussion topic, still to this day. Jeff Smith, of course, my partner on a lot of the high school coverage, was an assistant on that team. And Nebraska really was sparked because of how they got screwed over in Columbia the Sunday before the Big 8 tournament. Amen, game dog. Old Bruce Chubbuck, the rundown pre-LeBron block. But 94 is always going to be the team I circle, and Danny still smiles about the police escort, which probably made him a little bit nervous, but this was the bus being escorted.
We're on your side.
Yes, the whole place was going nuts.
Yeah, that was a spectacular run, but that's a team that, again, very likable, great chemistry. And yeah, it was almost as if what happened the weekend before was the last spark it needed.
Last straw.
I went to Kansas City, and I'm thinking I wouldn't doubt if Nebraska won this thing. I mean, they just had a roll on them, even though they didn't have any history in that tournament. And, there was just something that if Nebraska didn't win it, I would have been more surprised if Nebraska didn't win that year than by the fact that they did win. There was just something about him, and Pike was on a shooting roll, and Chubbuck was, he set the tone. There's something about Bruce Chubbuck and his mentality, his physicality. He was a special player in that regard. From what Atkinson West Holt, is that where he went to high school?
Yep. Atkinson West Holt.
And he brings that same, this is an early thought on the NSAA state basketball tournament. I know Central's not in it, but man, he kind of brings that same mentality to the Central Eagles as well. They play full court pressing, tough basketball. And it wasn't the same year they had last year. That Central team last year was a lot of fun to watch. I know Schmidt and I called them in districts. Maybe that was 2 years ago. But he brings that same mentality to Omaha Central as well.
Well, just to correct myself, they beat Oklahoma. They got revenge on Missouri. That was an undefeated regular season 14-0 Missouri team that was perfect in league play before the Big 8 tournament. Yeah, they went Oklahoma, Missouri, Okie State, all in consecutive days at Kemper, and they won a big time shootout. And they went into that tournament 18-9, kind of on the bubble there. So we'll see if Nebraska can get some work done and chop some wood and be on the right side of the bubble. But it was there for them. I mean, let me ask you this, guys: do you lean more towards this squad having more missed opportunities? Because you look at all the close. This is not football we're talking about, but basketball. All the close losses. Do you feel like this team are where they deserve to be, right, at 17-13 right now? Or do you say, look, man, I look at this squad and they're a 20-win team? Where do you lean? Are they more of they are a bubble team that they're so inconsistent, this is what they are? Or are you the woulda, coulda, shoulda that says this team absolutely should have 22 wins, 21 wins, 20 wins right now?
Well, look at all the one possession games in the final 30 to 45 seconds. You win half of those. half of them, you're already at 20, 21
and
wins.
you had a couple of them where you made the shot to go ahead. You didn't get the stop.
Right. And
end of the game.
That last week against Minnesota. But if you 2/3 of those 9 losses, you're at 20 wins and you're in the tournament, right? If you go 3-6 in those 1 possession games in the final minute of a game, you're at 20 wins already.
Iowa, you handle. Minnesota at home, you handle. And then just split with Rutgers and SC. That's really the
Michigan. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, that's that again. The word of the year is exasperating. But Nebraska did it. They've done it to themselves. They didn't get help at Ohio State. Some really, really egregious. Sorry about that, Troy Dannon. Tell Fred we're sorry too. Okay,
Fred, we got a call for you. And
sorry about that. We'll send you a letter, and we'll just let you know who's not going to be officiating your games if you make it to Indy. Sorry that we may have played a role in the fact that you might not get bit to the Big Ten tournament. Look, Bryce Williams should have made his free throw on a 41-3 point night, right? I get that. Nebraska missed, 7 free throws in that game. It shouldn't have gotten down to it. But you can't have egregious calls like that you've got to overcome. When if you're going to miss calls as an official, right? If you're going to miss calls, do it earlier when you're going to be a little bit sleepy. But when you're in the final 5 minutes of regulation and going into overtime, you really got to be thinking, I got to be on the game right now. Like another 15 minutes, and then I can take my nap. But right now, I've got to be centrally focused on what's happening. And then a guy runs 6 feet left and right to inbound the ball on the sideline, and you miss it. That was, the officiating late in that game in a nutshell. Nebraska's had opportunities. There's no question. They put themselves in this situation, but it did not help what happened at Ohio State. But if they win today, they're going to Indy. They got a chance to win 2 more against teams that they probably could beat.
Yeah, they control their own destiny. But I think to get back to the heart of this conversation, like, should this team be better? I think they're one Jamarcus Lawrence away from being a 20 win team. That loss last offseason. I mean, I don't think in the moment it felt as bad as now. You look back, you go, man, that's the kind of guy that this team, maybe even coming off the bench, and maybe he just wanted to go start. I think that's kind of my likely scenario here. Is I don't think he was probably going to be a starter. Maybe now that you've seen this team, maybe he would have ended up starting. But I mean, it feels like you're one guy, like him or Wiltshire, away from being that 20 win team, because outside of Bryce and Juwan, there's just not a scorer on this basketball team. And if those 2 guys don't have it going, it's curtains for this Husker basketball team. I feel like you're one guy away.
And a guy that looked like, okay, maybe he can be that third option for you was Captain Morgan. Great Iowa game. Thought he played well against Maryland and really had a big time. Him and Asijan both combined for 30 bench points against Ohio State. But we talk about the 1 possession losses. We also really got to talk about Nebraska's inability at the rim. And I'll say this, they weren't facing Mutombo or Alonzo Mourning night in, night out. It's not that there's not some bigs that are, listen, dude, getting to the rim and finishing with that type of congestion in the paint isn't easy, but Nebraska has been spectacularly bad at the rim. And we're talking 7 of 13.
Yeah.
7 of 20, 1 for 7. I mean, rim. And the one thing that you felt good about with this team is you had a rotation of 3 bigs you could use. I mean, Nebraska was really pretty deep with bodies and fouls and size that they brought in. And it's been just a bit of a nightmare from a consistency standpoint because most guys aren't able to finish at the rim. And as good as Juwan has been and as big time as he is, he himself, that's your barometer, right? Is how's Juwan going? Is Juwan finishing at the rim? You're finishing off 2 feet. Are you off balance off of 1 leg? And too many times Nebraska would go into the paint looking to get smoked and draw the foul versus just try and go finish the basket.
He's been better offensively this year than I thought he would be. Juwan Gary. I've always thought he was, well, everybody knows he's a defensive stopper. And when, he and Vandemel, was that 2 years ago when Trev Alberts gave him the black shirts, and he's a great defensive player. He might make a lot of money.
I think
because he can play defense. And at the next level, they may say, don't worry about scoring, just go shut somebody down. And there's a place in the game at the next level for guys like that. Now, is he tall enough? I don't know, but he's an elite defender, and Nebraska's gotten more offense out of Juwan Gary this year. I never thought he'd be a 20-20 guy with Bryce Williams. I thought he'd be more, if you can get 12 to 15 out of him, that's a big game, right? But the nights that Nebraska's gone 20-20 with him and Bryce, it's pretty impressive, pretty surprising. I think Bryce Williams will probably find himself on a roster because he can score and he can shoot from long range. He may not be the most physical player, but I think I said this on the show a while back. He reminds me of Trevor Ariza, who played at UCLA, and when I was with the Rockets, he was there for a little while. Kind of a journeyman NBA guy, as most of them are for the most part anymore. But he just kind of reminds me of that. Just hang out around, the 20-23 foot mark and, launch your shot. I could see that for Bryce Williams in the future. Nebraska's got a couple of elite players in the Big Ten. It's the complement, and boy, the Lawrence, call, that's a good loss. Or I mean, a good reference to a lost player.
Yeah. Well, Dave checks in, and that's fair to say. You're trying to project what piece you add, or two pieces, or multiple pieces you add in the portal, and can the thought of, well, this guy just needs a change of scenery, can it hit? Elijah, what do you think Burke does today?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, I know what he's done, and he's been 1 of 18 from the floor.
I was going to say takes 15 shots.
And the ankle is definitely screwing with his jumper. I don't know how healthy he is right now. It's kind of the question. He got a couple days off, but that lower body base, whatever he's been taking his jumper, something's been off there. I think the ankle's still bothering him. So with that in mind,
part of it's shot selection, though.
Well, and that's been an issue all year long. That's just who he is. I mean, there's been previous games where the shot selection's been questionable, and he's still able to pour in 12 points. But
time to get mine.
Well, I know, but for the love of God, shelve it.
Well, and I don't know, what does Burke, and I think this is a question that needs to be answered this offseason, assuming he's the guy that's back next year, is what is he offensively good at? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean,
he's a guy that is agile. He's mobile. No, but he can get a mid-range near paint touch, do a little back down, and you just got to be better around the rim. And then the kick out three, just say no unless you're wide open.
That Justice and I had off the air this past week of like, right now, the only thing that whenever Burke is offensively like doing well, it's because he gets matched up with the smaller guy in the post and he can go to work. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that likes posting up. I think he likes to be that stretch four that shoots the three. The problem being right now he can't
shoot the three part.
Yeah.
Dave says the over/under on 3-point shots today from Burke is 7.
I'll agree with that.
The under. I'll take the under.
I feel a 3 for 6 day coming on.
I just want to point out Vic's strategy with the time change.
Be so hungover this morning that I got to change my watch. Vic in Denver, I love you. Good to have you, bud. Well, we are getting close to tip. Should we talk a little baseball?
Oh, if we have to. Well, it's expected. We had this conversation yesterday, and Gary very smartly brought up the point. Hey, it's going to take some time for some of these younger arms that don't have a lot of innings to settle in. They're going to take their lumps, and you need the bats to heat up. The bats aren't heating up. That's where you're at right now. I mean, you had a decent start last night in game 1. You're hanging around. It gets to the bullpen. and dear God, cover your eyes. Like, that's what it is right now. I think you need some pitchers that need to get some innings, need to take some lumps, need to build up a little bit of confidence. But man, you got it right now. You're going to need to get 8-9 runs a baseball game if you want to be able to compete. That's what it is right now. And the bats, I don't have confidence in their ability.
A lot of runs, dude.
Yeah.
That's where you're at. Yesterday I mentioned, I think a lot hinges on Will Walsh in the weekend number 2 starter spot, and he came through, right? Nine strikeouts, didn't walk a batter, gave up 3 runs. What did he throw for innings yesterday? 6 or 7 innings. And you got a great performance. And if he can be that guy in the number 2 spot, great. But he can also be 3 innings, 5 runs, but he gave them exactly what Nebraska had to have. And what happens? Bullpen. The bullpen didn't get it done. They didn't get enough runs, obviously, and 0-2 to start Big Ten play at home. And one of the fears I had is if Nebraska doesn't get it turned around, Vanderbilt is way in the rearview mirror, and we've already forgotten about Nebraska's win over Vandy. That's a statement non-conference win. Getting swept those last 2 against Louisiana. Ouch. And then I think Nebraska was hurt by not getting those 2 games in this week against Omaha and South Dakota State, getting a chance to play at home, especially with the news of McConaughey. Okay, who's our guy here? And your bats don't swing for 6 days, something like that. I think the weather implications, and that's just the peril of playing in the North and this time of year. But Nebraska's layoff hurt.
Well, what are the keys? Let me ask the question to you, gentlemen, and I'll give my answer here. What are the keys? In Nebraska this year offensively is a small ball baseball team. And that's how Will Bolt likes to play. Bolt ball, small ball, however you want to call it. I mean, there's not a whole bunch of power in the lineup. If you want to play small ball, what are some keys? To me, it's avoiding strikeouts, getting on base via walks, and you got to have strong starting pitching performances. And right now, Nebraska, their ability to get all 3 of those in a game has seemed nearly impossible. They're striking out, they're not walking a lot, and it feels like a 50-50 chance you get a strong pitching performance. So if you try to play small ball and you don't have strong starting pitching, you don't get on base via walks, and you strike out a lot, it's a disaster combo.
Well, the approach, and it is maddening if you're a hitter. It's so hard to do just between the ears, let alone physically do it. All right, do I wait for my pitch? Do I work the count? Do I go up there ready to mash? And it kind of just depends on who you're seeing on the mound, right? And Nebraska's just been problematic. The strikeouts, to me, is your big issue. And then you flip it around. I can't tell you so early in the season how many times Nebraska's given up a back-breaking hit when they've been up in the count 0-2, 1-2, or maybe it's a neutral count at 2-2, but you've got 2 strikes, and they have not been able to make the get-out-of-dodge pitch to end an inning. And then more times than not, whoever you've brought in the bullpen, and there's been several trying to stabilize. It's been matches in a can of gasoline versus putting the fire out. So, and then Will said it in the post game yesterday after the second loss that, all right, guys you've got a mature enough team here that he said it. Guys need to be a little pissed off at one another. And it's okay to call out your teammate if it's out of love. And I'm adding to that, but let some folks know, these upperclassmen, that what's going on ain't okay. And then Elijah and Bill, you had guys not making plays, 2 key errors yesterday that really kind of opened the floodgates on top of how shaky your bullpen's been.
I mean, we've reached the point with this team. My concern level is very, very high with what the rest of the season is going to look like. Especially losing McConaughey and the way it's looked in the first weekend without him at home. I am very, very concerned that it's going to be a season like 2 seasons ago, where the bats never quite get it going. The pitching's never quite good enough. This team has a lot of issues right now, and I am very worried about what the rest of the season is going to look like. I know it's early. People say, "Oh, the weather's going to warm up, the bats are going to get things going." You're in the Big Ten, though. You can't afford to have a bad couple of weeks to open the Big Ten slate because of how far behind the eight ball that puts you come postseason time. And that's the expectation for this team. Being in a regional, winning some games in a regional. I mean, the goal all along has been to make it to a super regional. And based on what I'm seeing from this team right now, I'm concerned they're even going to make it into postseason play. Like it's that concerning to me right now.
It's a fair take right now. They can flip it around for sure. Brian Snitley, again, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, nails it. And Snitley's been on this as a concern with the hard contact. And these are guys that have been in the program for a while. And it's been ongoing. So maybe kind of are what you are.
And a secondary point from Snitley, which is kind of where I'm coming from here, is they are relying on small ball. And Snitley says, Bolt said preseason they wouldn't be as relying on small ball. They had pop up and down the lineup. I'm not seeing it. And if you don't have pop up and down the lineup, you got to be, as I said earlier, really good at getting on base via walks, not wasting at bats via strikeouts, and you got to have strong pitching. And right now, Nebraska is about 0 for 3 on those things.
Yeah, it's all happening like right all at the same time. There's perfect storms all around. You know, the bats aren't popping, and you have unfortunately elbows popping, and you're trying to rebuild your pitching staff all as Big Ten play is starting. And we all know the Big Ten is not the SEC when it comes to baseball. So if you're going to get a bid, you got to be flirting in the top 3 and, having some momentum going into the Big Ten tournament and maybe winning it to get there. Just there's not a lot of respect for the Big Ten when it comes to baseball. So to be in the middle of the pack in this conference, not going to get it done. You got to have a great start and keep it going and not get out of the top 3 or 4 going into the postseason play. And
I'm not at complete panic. The DEFCON's pretty high. I'm not at complete panic, but you got a road stretch with UCLA, Pepperdine, midweek, and then USC. If you don't have things figured out by then, it will be panic time for me.
Well, Husker softball is rolling, which is good. Husker women's basketball had a nice run in the tournament.
Yeah, we should mention, Selection Sunday next week or whatever day is for the women. Apologize that I don't know. Is it Sunday or Monday for them?
But
it's Sunday.
Is it Sunday? They used to do it on Monday, but Amy Williams has done a great job with that team. It is likable. Alexis Markowski is going to go down as one of the greatest players in the history of the Nebraska women's game, right up there with Karen Jennings, Martise Ivy, Jazz Shelley. There's so many more, but what a great career for a Lincoln native. And Andy has to be a really proud papa. And his other daughter hit the shot for Pius in the district game the other day. So that was great. But what a great ambassador she is for Nebraska athletics and Nebraska women's basketball. And right behind her now is a new star on the rise, Britt Prince. Everybody knew she would be great, and she has been great. Big Ten all-freshman team, has played like a veteran since
super
day one.
Humble. I mean, is great as her accolades coming into college are. She's been just incredible. With
the wild stat is that game against UCLA was her first time losing in March ever.
I know. I saw that. And she fought, man. She fought, gave it back. I kind of felt bad for her with getting that offensive foul call with the push off. You had, and I don't mean this as a jerk, but you had some beasts for UCLA. They were strong and big. And UCLA, USC. We're going to wind it down. It is the Sunday live edition of the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Catch us 7 days a week. Weekend schedule is 7:45-ish on Saturdays, 10:30 live Sunday, then 4 to 6 Monday through Friday along the Average Joe Network. Can watch also on Twitter, AJ Sports Radio. Give that a follow, like, and subscribe again to YouTube. Catch us on KFOR in Lincoln, Monday through Friday. The ESPN Superstation, Kearney Hastings, Grand Island, Central Nebraska News Talk 900. Also out of Columbus, can catch us Monday through Friday. And appreciate all of you finding us and sticking with us here on the Average Joe Sports Show. Predictions, sure to go wrong. Elijah Herbel, what happens here in about 2 minutes?
I'm concerned. I think Nebraska wins. I don't think Nebraska covers. I think it's a tight one. I think Iowa's going to play for their head coach, but I think Nebraska pulls it out late behind Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary. I think they have good days today. Give me Nebraska. I'm going to change my prediction from Friday because I'm more concerned as this day goes on, but give me Nebraska 80, Iowa 77.
Okay.
I think you get an Ohio State, Michigan performance from Nebraska. They score 114, give up 49. What the hell?
Okay. Bill with the elbow off of the top rope to his beloved Hawkeye faithful. The number's always been 75. You keep a team at 75 or below, Nebraska wins. That's the magic number today. And I think Nebraska just does. Give me Nebraska 81-72 over the Hawkeyes. Well, enjoy. Shake the cobwebs. We'll be back at you tomorrow at 4 with the Average Joe Sports Show. And again, Average Joe Sports Show, YouTube, search and like, Spotify, iTunes. Appreciate you all. Enjoy your Sunday.